From dog tags to ownership, heroes take the lead. Stories of veterans building dreams with passion, drive, and speed. From service to success, we're here to inspire the quest. Dog tags to ownership, we're the best. Take the prize.
Battlefield to the boardroom. This is Dog Tags to Ownership, the podcast where veterans share their journeys from serving our nation to leading in business. Hear inspiring stories of grit, growth, and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives those who serve to succeed. Tune in and take the first step toward your own mission.
Military One Percenters, welcome to Dog Tags to Ownership, where once a week we interview veterans who charted a path towards entrepreneurship. Our goals are to share resources, advice, and success stories about starting a business, discuss strategies for building financial independence and creating your own path, and most importantly, build a community to support each other through the challenges of transitioning from service life to civilian ownership. Today is episode 26, our recap episode, and today is the first time that Matt and I are doing a recap episode separately. So Matt is now in Kansas City. I'm still in Northern Virginia. Matt, how's the move? How's Kansas City?
Good. I feel like we're finally getting settled into the new home after some back and forth to Virginia and being your roommate for 2.5 weeks. Garage is all unpacked. I spent the entire day yesterday literally getting our garage situated and organized. I've already been out to one of our rental properties and put down some new vinyl plank flooring at one of those units. So yeah, I feel like we're getting established here. I still feel like I'm on vacation. I think from the military, it's just vacation. I think it's the honeymoon phase probably of the transition process.
Yeah, isn't that what Joe Byerly talked about when he was on the episode? When he came on, said that he just felt like he was always on leave when he first retired and probably still does sometimes.
Yeah, I'm trying taking his advice of maintaining a schedule or a routine. So it's still 5 o'clock alarm to get up and go to the gym and kind of get my day started, even if that day turns into just organizing my garage. But I still want to have some sense of purpose and accomplishment each day. So no matter how big or small.
Yeah. Well, and you did that whole rental property with doing the floors and that, so which also screwed up our podcasting schedule. I will just have to say by you doing that, but that's okay. We fixed it, and we're back on track now.
Yeah, my schedule's open back up until the next rental property needs repairs or new flooring. So or our basement.
Your real job of you're now a real job of being a property manager.
Exactly.
That you're in Kansas City.
Yes, ma'am.
So today we're going to recap episode 23 with Leroy Roberts. He is the founder of Teamworth Solutions. Episode 24 with Kimberly Jung, the founder of Rummy Spice and also the current CEO of the Blanchard House. And then episode 25 with Patrick Flood, the founder and CEO of Owners in Honor, a nonprofit organization that helps veterans get into entrepreneurship. I'll just start, Matt, with episode 23 with Leroy Roberts. I think the big thing that blew me away from his story is just how he came from his humble beginnings, serving in the British Army and then launching his own business to helping people build confidence in their professional worth. His journey really just proves that it doesn't matter what uniform you wore. I mean, now we're an international podcast because of him, that the entrepreneurship grind, it's universal. Right? That he really talked about on our podcast, his humble beginnings coming from Jamaica, going across the Atlantic, going to the UK, being in the British Army, and then now what he's doing with Teamworth Solutions. I saw on his LinkedIn, he just had where he came out with being a co-author on a book talking about helping C-suite executives really find their confidence, their growth, and really that leadership aspect of it. Really just a great episode, hearing from him and knowing that, no matter where you are, entrepreneurship is still a grind, but it's still worth it at the end.
Yeah, I know we've often talked about the growth mindset that I think, veterans, entrepreneurs have, and how goals can change and evolve when you have a growth mindset. So with Leroy, as you talked about his humble beginnings, his initial goal was to graduate high school. I mean, that was going to be something that no one in his family, generationally had accomplished. That was a big goal for him, was to graduate high school. And I think, we talk about privileges that we have in certain societies, and for him, to have that goal, and then for that goal to then evolve into the constabulary police force, like becoming a police officer there, and then, as you touched on, becoming a soldier in the British Army. How much that growth mindset enabled him to move on from graduating high school to serving in the British military, to starting his own company. And naysayers, I think he mentioned early on, like his dream of graduating high school was something that seemed like it was out of reach for him. And so for him to accomplish that, and then to accomplish other things, it created that momentum, I think, for him, and yeah, brought him to where he is today. Great story, I think, with Leroy.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was, just having him on and just hearing his perspective and where he came from. And, most of the people we've brought on so far have been, US military folks, and just hearing that it's the same grind no matter where you are. If you wanna get into entrepreneurship, being in the military, doing those things, it's all one driving focus of turning that service into impact somehow. And that's really our unifying topic, for this recap episode. Then we'll move into episode 24 with Kimberly Jung. Kimberly has done a lot of things, as we heard on the episode, but I think the one thing is she used her service, her education, and her leadership to really found at the start, be a co-founder of Rummy Spice, which empowered Afghan farmers. And then now she leads Blanchard House, making an impact through business and storytelling with that company. And really just for her, like, got out of the military after 5 years being at West Point, went to Harvard Business School, wasn't sure what she wanted to do, and really saw, and you mentioned this in the podcast, that big P purpose. Her and her co-founders saw a gap in something in Afghanistan from serving in Afghanistan, and wanted to fill that void, and thought that that was gonna be a good way, and that's why they founded Rummy Spice, and that's why today Rummy Spice is doing a great job still in helping Afghan farmers bring saffron to all over the world, and to Michelin star tables. And then she just continued that entrepreneurship drive and has founded other companies, been CEO, and then now with Blanchard House, helped founding that one, and then being the CEO of Blanchard House. That great storytelling company that they have there, that really, is catapulting and doing some bigger things. And I know, you know, we talked about it off, camera, but that company is really making some moves, and we're gonna see them on the big screen, I think, one day with some of their storytelling. And it's just a true testament to her drive and her mindset of being an entrepreneur, and really taking that, again, turning that service into impact, and wanting to do something more, and leading with that purpose.
Yeah, you talk about causes bigger than yourself. I'm not sure that there's a bigger cause than stepping out of uniform and then returning to Afghanistan as a civilian, and assisting Afghan farmers to be, more financially stable, to increase financial stability to the region. And coincidentally, one of our neighbors here is a veteran. And one of the things he actually did was assisted with basically bringing agricultural experts from the US to assist Afghan farmers. So I was able to kind of tell her story after meeting him in our new community out here in Kansas City. So it was really cool. Small world, I guess, with the military community at times. So, but I don't know that there's, I know we'll talk about Patrick Flood, but causes bigger than themselves, and not necessarily looking at profit margins. I mean, that's obviously an important component of having a successful business. But I think for her, Patrick, and others, it's about what impact they can make. And again, not sure that there's a bigger impact than improving lives of others that are thousands of miles removed from the United States.
Yeah, and just to finish on Kim, and her story, it's just really interesting when she had talked about when she was in the military, being in Afghanistan, being over there with all of her kit on, all of her gear, security, and everything. And then they go back a few years later to go talk with the farmers, and she's in her hijab and just sitting down drinking tea with them, and such a different experience. And then just the smell of the saffron, and them just wanting to find a sustainable way for the Afghan farmers to be able to make money, not just through the poppy. So, like you said, just bigger than themselves, trying to find a way to help people to bring stability to a region, because they knew, hey, to really bring stability to a region, you have to find a way for those farmers to make money. And like you said, just a purpose bigger than themselves, and just an incredible story for her and the Rummy Spice team. And then just her continuing that entrepreneurship journey and all the things that she's done, not just with her businesses, but also um, with Bunker Labs and some of the other organizations that she works with to help veteran entrepreneurs. Great person to reach out to if people have questions about being an entrepreneur and what it means, and how to get into that business. And then the last episode, episode 25 with Patrick Flood, the founder and CEO of Owners in Honor. Patrick, absolutely loved having him on the podcast. Very inspiring, energetic, passionate about Owners in Honor, and wanting to help veterans. And I was inspired by it because everything that he is talking about is what we want to do with this podcast and bring to the community, to our listeners and followers is, hey, you can be an entrepreneur. There are ways to do it. And that's what he wants to do. He just wants to help veterans be entrepreneurs and really be able to go back to their communities and bring that impact back to the communities, which I think is amazing. And again, it just goes back to, like I said, just turning that service into impact. And he really, you can tell, is very passionate and energetic about
He
that.
talked about the crossroads with, whether he was going to be a for-profit or nonprofit business, and it could have operated either way. But he talked about his, knowing his mindset and his winning attitude, that if it for a for-profit business, he would have been looking at profit margins, and that would have been the driving force, right, to measure success. So the way he took it was to go with a nonprofit, because he knew the measurement of success was how many people can I help versus how much money can I make. And so acknowledged it's not going to be as profitable as it could be, but this is the direction I want to take it. So you talk about like sticking, to the values based companies that we've had on here, but just being, again, rooted in the values that we've been, I think, brought up in the military, and the selfless service, mindset is really what resonated with me when Patrick was speaking. It just continued to go back to helping others, again, a cause bigger than himself, and getting more fulfillment out of helping others than, again, seeing money grow in a bank account.
Yeah, and just to continue on that with him is the one thing that I really appreciate from him and what he talked about is helping a veteran go back to their community and helping a community. So it's not just about the veteran getting into entrepreneurship, but it's also helping communities. And getting a veteran back into that community, getting a business to then create wealth or create jobs for that community, which is something that we need in middle class America across the country. A lot of military members come from small towns across the country. And so being able to go back to your community, that's one of his big things, is helping that veteran go back to their community, be closer to family, getting that business, but then also being a part of the community. And I think that's something that we miss as veterans sometimes is giving back too. Yeah, we've served our country for, however long, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, but we can still give back to our community and be part of that community. And I think that's one thing that I really love about his program with Owners and Honors is getting those veterans back to their community to be able to serve their community and really help generate that market or the job growth for that community. So just a great job from them, that team and what they're doing, program that they have that people can join and be part of, and then also all the different like fireside chats and stuff like that they have going on. So I just thoroughly enjoyed having them on and think that they're doing great things, and I hope that we can continue to partner with them. And
Yeah, Julie, when you talk about community, what I think was really cool about the episode with Patrick, we previously had on Dwayne Tanner from Belfort Franchise Group, and you were able to connect them because Patrick's focus is acquisition of existing companies, not necessarily with a franchise focus, but he has veterans that he may consult with, and a franchise may be a better fit for them versus maybe taking over a mom and pop established business. And so during the show and after the show, you were able to actually link up Patrick and Dwayne over email. And, who knows, like there may be a veteran that we don't even know the name of right now that meets Patrick. The acquisition is not a good fit, but a franchise acquisition is. And maybe he gets linked up with Dwayne, right? And it's just so cool. Again, spreading the community and making an impact that we don't even necessarily, can't put our hands on sometimes. So just, I don't know, just an observation that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what, like I said, at the beginning with this is the whole thing about this podcast is to build a community. That's our whole goal, is to help build a community, help veterans become entrepreneurs, military members. If you're if you want to become an entrepreneur, business owner, we just want to help that community and build that community. And just like you said, one way to help with that is connecting people, right? It's all about networking. It's all about connecting people and getting the right people together to be able to help our veterans get to become entrepreneurs. And yeah, like you said, we'll see. Hopefully, I think they linked up and hopefully can do some stuff collaboration together and get some veterans some of those franchises. Because again, like Dwayne said, some of those franchises are great franchises for veterans to get part of and get into that entrepreneurship journey and turn their dog tags into ownership. But I think that overall, from those past 3 episodes, the biggest takeaway I took, transcended all 3 of them, is just turning that service into impact and how veterans lead, through ownership and purpose. And all of them, led or are leading their businesses, through that ownership and that purpose, and they all have a purpose to get to, and it's really to help other people. And that's, you can't ask for anything better, and that's what I think when we talk about veterans and military members, that's what we bring to the table, is we bring that leadership, and Patrick talked about that a little bit, is that you can't, somebody who went to business school, they don't get that leadership. We get that in the military. The military spent a lot of money on us to become good leaders, as I would say, but, it's really being able to lead through that ownership and having that purpose and that drive to give back to community. That's really what the big takeaway from the 3 episodes for me that I took from them.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it any better. Sticking to their roots, again, being value-driven entrepreneurs and just the humility that all of them exhibited, right? It's just those consistent themes that we see from many of our guests. But great episodes, and then looking forward to kind of getting back to some of the episodes that we started with folks, that are running their own small business. So I know we're going to get back into some of that here in the next couple episodes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, okay, I guess with that, we can wrap up. So Matt, I guess I do have a question for you. Are all the beds in the new house made?
Not yet, because it's 7:30 Central Time. So I've got to go back and make our bed that's probably not made right now. That my wife was.
But are the other beds in the house made? Have you guys like set up all the beds in the
So
house?
yeah, there's only one other bedroom currently, and that is made. Ella's bed, I'm certain, is not made right now, but that's when I usually just walk upstairs and throw the comforter back over, to give me some peace of mind. But the only spare bedroom right now is made.
Okay. All right. Don't forget what Admiral William McRaven says. Make your bed. The little
I
things.
do. I again come behind. I made it yet our bed yesterday afternoon when I discovered around noon that it had not been made yesterday.
You can't get off track while you're in retirement now.
Laser focused.
We are extremely excited to introduce for our bonus content to the show today Joshua I. Altman, Managing Director of Beltway Media, a DC-based creative and communications firm. Joshua, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us to discuss the services that Beltway Media could provide to our listeners. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you both for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're,
thanks for.
we're super excited to bring you onto our podcast so you can talk a little bit about Beltway Media and the services that you can provide as a communications organization, communications firm to military entrepreneurs, former federal worker entrepreneurs, and the things in your firm and what that really has to offer and what services you could provide to our listeners and followers. But could you tell us first off a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so I went to journalism school and started my career as a journalist. I'm in the DC area now. Went to journalism school in DC and also then started my career as a journalist here in DC. But my deep background was in, and still is, in tech and in production. I was a digital video journalist back then. And because of that, looking to transition from that into something else, I found advising, consulting, and now fractional, really project by project at the beginning. Because, someone was looking for a website. Well, I did that. Someone was looking for, video done. And that was something that I was able to do. So I wish I could say I had some sort of grand plan, that there was a map to get into this company at this stage, but I kind of fell into it accidentally.
Is that what led you, I guess, to start and found Beltway Media and what you do now with assisting both the public and the private sectors with improving messaging?
Yeah. So again, I kind of was doing project by project at that time. Then, okay, this is kind of going to be a thing that can coalesce. And because of that background in production, what we do is we focus really on 4 key areas, what people read, what they see, what they hear, and what they experience. So, reading, probably what people think that's the most common. It's a book. It's, your Twitter feed, your X feed, your Blue Sky feed, whatever that is. You're reading it. You're also seeing it. That's how you experience it. And the same thing with hearing. So when we say experience, that's not just big experiential events, although those are experiences. It is how you're experiencing that content, whatever you are putting out there for your audiences to engage with. And that's kind of where we bring that in, all to the fractional chief communication officer, which is really focused on working with companies to shape perception and build trust through that integrated big picture view.
Can you just expand a little bit about what Beltway Media does and how you guys assist your clientele in their communication space and how you help them in their communication if something happens within their organization and how they can better communicate those things out to the public?
Well, the first thing is, if you're calling us after something has happened, you should have already called us, because you want to be prepared. You want to have all this stuff in place. And it's not just about responding to a crisis. It's really your day-to-day everything. Employee communications is a big one that we've worked with. Stakeholders who aren't employees, your customers. If you have a real physical product that you're putting out, that packaging is part of your communications. How do you open it? All of those things are part of that integrated communications. So definitely start with us early, or a company like us. It's never too early really to think about it, because if you're getting to the point where something's happened, now you're really already behind the curve on that. And, the differences between public sector, there it's, we call it consulting. You're a contractor, as you both know. Those are very big in public sector. It's very similar work, but as you guys know, as your listeners know, it's really relabeled with government language. In the private sector, we have investor relations. In the public sector, we have reports to Congress. They're both people who give you money. So you look at it that way. Sales meetings, media training, board presentations. That's private sector. Public sector, congressional hearing prep. Again, the people who give you money. So a lot of that really does go into both the public and private sectors.
I came across on your website, it talked about experience with modernizing, rebranding, and relaunching federal websites. Can you talk about sort of your approach or vision when you're altering or improving a website, such as a federal website? Like, what's your approach
Yeah,
to that?
it's a lot of listening. And that's true in, with private sector companies also. There's a lot of listening to users, to employees, especially if you're dealing with small or mid-sized companies. They're really involved in that process. It could be the people who designed it are the people who are looking to improve it now. So you really want to hear from them, because they know the history of it. Also, they know how it was built. So the technical elements of it are going to be important, because how it was built will affect what you can change versus what will really need to be overhauled, maybe totally redone. So all those are important constituencies. When you're with federal agencies, those agencies, as you know, as your listeners know, are very mission driven. Everything has to fit into the mission. How are we doing it? So find out the project's goals, and then find out how each of those goals is intended to support the agency's mission. And if it doesn't, either it has to align, or that goal is not appropriate for this project, which happens. Every project, when you start out, will revise going forward. Again, when you're doing this with both public sector, private sector, we prioritize really two big buckets. Usability. That's, how users interact. Is it easy to navigate that website and achieve whatever their goals are? If you're, in the public sector, if you're the government, IRS is probably one of the agencies people deal with the most. I did not work at the IRS, so I can't divulge anything there. So it's relatively safe to talk about from that perspective. Can you find out the number to call the department that you need to? Can you reach them? If that's your goal, is that part of it? That's usability. And then usefulness is, does it fulfill the intended purpose that someone has when they go there? So is that phone number there that someone needs to call? So those are kind of the two big things. There are some special, I don't want to say special, but unique things to government where you have certain statutory requirements. 508 compliance for people with disabilities is huge in government, as it should be. Private sector websites should also have accessibility features. I have one on my website. I've had it for years. It's a plugin. You push a button and it makes the website, more accessible for people who need it. That's optional in the private sector. In the government, you have to really prioritize those things and to meet those, standards from the beginning. And it's much easier to do things like that from the beginning than it is to go at the end and say, wait a minute, we forgot 508 compliance. What do we have to do to fix it? Probably next is going to be, constraints. You hit this a lot, but, especially in government, if you're, as you guys would know, you're dealing not with the IRS. You're dealing with one small component of it usually. And you might be constrained by, you have to use the IRS's official template. It has to look the same. That might not let you do what you want to do. That's something you have to work in. You might not be able to upload images larger than a certain size or file types of a certain type. So that will limit what you can do. And you have to think about that and always budget. Public sector, private sector, it will be budget. That's another big one.
Yeah, that seems super applicable. And obviously within existing websites, some of the things that you can do to improve it. In another scenario, what might a veteran, with a passion for entrepreneurship, business ownership benefit, from the services that you provide? Or what would maybe that first meeting, what would that look like if they say, hey, I've got this business idea, and they want to sit down with you? What might you be able to kind of share with them service-wise?
Yeah. So we always say we're the expert at communicating your expertise. That veteran, he's an expert, she's an expert at what he or she does. They are not the expert in corporate brand communication. That's us. That's what we're here for. So in that first conversation, we're going to figure out what it is that you are doing and what that expertise is that you need to communicate. So if you are starting a restaurant, if you're starting, your startup, your SaaS, whatever you've got, we'll figure that out. And then from that, we need to communicate out to your stakeholders with basically two big overarching themes. The idea is shape perception and build and maintain trust. And that's going to be in that first conversation. And then it's really going to get into how we take that, really integrated, big picture view to look into those two things. How do we use everything at our disposal to shape perception, then build and maintain trust? And we are fractional. So we are fully integrated. We are embedded with your team. So we are really hands-on with you. We're not here just for your launch. We're not here just to get you to a seed round. We are really going to be in and part of your team. So that's really one thing that we want to emphasize is we're with you throughout the process. And like I said before, it's never too early. We've worked with, solo people bootstrapping their business from very early stages all the way through businesses that are, totally avoiding external funding and have been around self-sustaining for years with multiple employees. So both stages and everything in between is really where we can work and help you.
No, it's fantastic. And I think we have that breadth and depth of listeners as well, right? The ones that are just getting started and the ones that have been doing this for over a decade now. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention before I turn it back over to Julie is just, I know you are not a veteran of the military service, but I can tell you are a very values-based company
Yeah.
by just going over your website, your LinkedIn, and then just the comments you're making, right? It's not about, yes, these companies want to probably be profitable, and there's probably an angle and an approach to that, but nothing that you said on here was, "Hey, we're here to make this company massively successful." It's about improving the product, improving that company or organization through a values-driven approach, it seems like.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we do, and we've done it before, is essentially work ourselves out of a job. If we will train your company who, over the course of a multi-year engagement, usually to take over these functions, we're fractional. But eventually, if you grow to the point, if that's your goal to have 200 employees and you want all this in-house, we're here to help you facilitate that and bring that in. If we're really successful, we have worked ourselves out of that job.
Yeah, and I think with that too is one of the things that we saw on your website is your free tools, so including that startup communication checklist that you have. And I would just tell our listeners and followers to one, go to your website, so beltway.media, go and check it out to see what all you offer, but then also download that free startup checklist, free startup communications checklist. And then Joshua, could you just describe a little bit of what that checklist entails for our listeners and followers and what they
Yes.
could use from that checklist as they get started?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of things on there right now. We have the cybersecurity communications checklist, and we have the startup one. We're going to be adding soon for scale ups, for your more mid-sized businesses. We're going to add one for, those solo founders also, because, we really do want to cover as many people as possible. And there's nothing to download. Visit the website, complete the checklist, get the result. We also do have some, very brief downloadable guides. I think we have one up right now. I think it's also the one for startups. And with that, you do download it. It's a PDF and it's a few pages of, you know, here's this. Do you have these three things to go to, marketing? Do you have these three things when you're starting? And we're going to have a lot more of those coming out over the next year. Again, to focus on different aspects of what these businesses will need. And for those, download them, write on them, print them up, scribble all over them.
Yeah, and I think that just goes back to your original point when it comes to communication. It's something that even in the military, we don't always think about the communication aspect of when we're doing an operation. It's in paragraph 5 of an op order, but it's always something that we gloss over, but we always need whenever it hits the fan, right? So if you don't
Yeah.
include communication in your overall plan and in your overall mission as you're building your business throughout your business, it can come to bite you in the butt. So we just, really appreciate you coming on today and talking a little bit about Beltway Media and what all you guys provide as a communication firm and how you can help our listeners and followers and veteran entrepreneurs as they're building their businesses, already have their businesses, and really help them with their communication plans and strategies. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners that we didn't cover today, or any other information you would like to provide to them?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to emphasize this. If you think your business is too small, if you think this is something that's way outside my budget, still think about it. That's what fractional is there for. It is there for something that you could really just have, 5 hours a month, realistically, if you're at a very early stage. If you think you're too small, doesn't matter. What we do as chief communications officers is we shape perception and we build trust. It is a lot easier to shape perception and build trust than to reshape perception and rebuild trust later after something's happened. So start with those processes early. And it can always start with something small. A website, you've got that. Is it doing what you need it to do? Little things like that are just where you can start, especially once you start having employees. Communicating stuff with them is equally important.
Yeah, and I think you hit on some very big points for our listeners and followers as you're just talking about, the communication piece and the communication officer aspect of it. And like I said, like that's a huge thing for us in the military is making sure you're communicating your messages, your themes and messages, as we say in the military, and getting that out there. So yeah, we really appreciate you coming on today, and being a part of our podcast. And just if people would like to reach out to you, they can do so. You're on LinkedIn, and then also on reach out on the website beltway.media
Yeah.
to find you
You can
all as well.
email me directly Altman at beltway.media. My LinkedIn is my name, LinkedIn/in/Joshua I. Altman. We have the company page, /company/Beltway-media. And of course, just the website, beltway.media. You can schedule appointments right on there if you have questions. So please reach out. Like I said, we're here to help. And if we're successful, we'll ultimately put ourselves out of that job.
Military one percenters, whether you're brainstorming your first business idea, already running a company, or just curious about where to start, DogTags Ownership is the place for you. Please hit that subscribe button to receive all new episodes. Also, if you know someone who has turned their dog tags into ownership, drop us a DM on social media or tag someone. We are always looking for new guests to bring onto the podcast. As always, military one percenters, thank you for your service. Let's continue this journey and working together to write our next chapter. Until next week, keep pushing to turn those dog tags into ownership.
From dog tags to ownership, heroes take the lead. Stories of veterans building trains with passion, drive, and speed. From service to success, we're here to inspire the quest. Dog tags to ownership, we're the best. Take the prize.